My name is Mira, and the first time I saw him, he was lying in the snow, half covered, not moving. I was walking home from the market with nothing in my basket because I didn't have enough money that day. The wind was strong, and most people had already gone inside. I saw him near the edge of the woods, beside the broken fence that nobody had fixed for years. His coat was torn, and one of his hands had blood on it. For a moment, I thought he was dead. I didn't know why I stopped. I could have walked past him. It would have been easier. But something in me said, "Help him." Maybe it was his face, which looked peaceful even though he was hurt. Or maybe it was because I knew how it felt to be alone. My parents died when I was 17, and I've lived alone ever since. I work in the village cleaning houses and helping old people with their shopping. No one really notices me. So when I saw him there, I felt something strange, like I was seeing a story begin. I touched his shoulder gently. He moved a little, then opened his eyes. They were green. Not the kind of green you see in trees or grass, but colder, brighter. He looked at me without fear. His lips were dry, and his voice was almost nothing when he said, "Don't leave." I told him I wouldn't, though I was scared. He was heavy, but I pulled him onto the old wooden cart that was near the fence. It had been left there long ago. Slowly, I took him back to my house, which was small and quiet, with only one room and a stove that didn't always work. I took off his wet boots and found that his feet were almost frozen. I wrapped them in warm cloth and made soup, even though I didn't have much food left. I gave him some water and put 2 blankets over him. Then I sat and watched him sleep. He didn't wake up that night. I kept the fire going and listened to the wind outside. The next morning, he was still asleep. I went to Mrs. Hallie's house and told her I was sick. She pays me to help her with laundry and tea, but I didn't want to leave the man alone. When I came back, I cleaned his cuts and changed the cloth on his feet. He didn't open his eyes until the end of the 2nd day. When he finally spoke, I was making tea. I heard his voice from the corner of the room. He said, "I thought I was gone." I turned and saw him sitting up, holding the blanket around him. His face looked better now, but he still seemed weak. I gave him tea and asked, "Do you remember what happened?" He shook his head. "No, only cold, and someone behind me." I waited, but he didn't say more. For the next few days, he stayed in bed. I didn't ask questions, and he didn't speak much. But every time I looked at him, I wondered who he really was. He didn't seem afraid, even though he didn't know where he was. He moved like someone who had done hard things in life but had peace inside. I gave him a name, Elias, because I couldn't keep calling him you. He smiled when I said it. "Elias, that sounds strong," he said. "You look like someone who had a strong name," I told him. He stayed in my home through the cold days. He began to walk again, helped me carry water from the well, and fix the broken chair that I had stopped using. Once, he caught a chicken that had escaped from the neighbor's yard, and the neighbor thanked him with a small bag of potatoes. "He's useful," the man said. but quiet. Is he your cousin? I said no and walked away. Elias never asked about my life. That surprised me. Most people ask too many questions. But one night, while we were eating soup, I asked him, "Where were you before I found you?" He looked into the fire and said, "I don't know. I was running from something, but I don't remember what." "Do you have family?" I asked. He said no. "Were you rich?" He smiled. "Not in the way that matters." I didn't understand what he meant, but I didn't push him. One afternoon, I was cleaning his coat while he was outside chopping wood. I felt something heavy inside the inner pocket. It was a small wooden box, smooth and warm. There was a symbol carved into the top, like a circle with a line through it. I opened it and saw a gold ring. It didn't shine like normal gold, but it looked alive somehow, as if it was waiting. I touched it with one finger. Behind me, Elias said, "Don't." I turned quickly. He was standing at the door, holding a log in one hand. "It's not for you," he said quietly. I felt embarrassed. "I didn't mean to." "I know," he said. He walked over, took the box from me, and put it back into his coat. Then he sat down. "That ring is different," he said. "It gives what you ask, but takes something too." "What do you mean?" I asked. He looked at me. "Some things are better not explained. Not yet." I should have been afraid, but I wasn't. Maybe because he had never lied to me, or maybe because deep inside, I trusted him more than I trusted most people in my life. That night, I dreamed of green light and a voice that said my name, over and over again. When I woke up, he was standing by the window watching the sky. Spring came and the snow melted. Elias built a small garden bed behind the house. We planted onions and carrots. One morning, he turned to me and asked, "If I stayed, really stayed, what would you think?" I didn't answer right away. I felt warm and full inside, and I smiled. "Then I wouldn't be alone anymore," I said. We didn't have a wedding with guests, but we called ourselves husband and wife. I wore a blue dress, and he made a ring from silver wire. We stood under the tree near the edge of the woods, the same place where I had first seen him. It was quiet, and the wind was soft that day. Weeks passed, and strange things began to happen. We never ran out of food. There was always flour in the jar and sugar in the box. New blankets appeared. My old broken shoes were replaced with warm boots. I asked Elias about it once. "I traded old things I had," he said. Things from before. I wanted to believe him, but one morning I woke early and saw something I couldn't explain. He stood in the garden, holding the wooden box. He took out the ring and dropped it from one hand to the other. In that moment, 3 men appeared in dark clothes. They bowed. Elias said something I couldn't hear. Then the men disappeared. In their place was a chest full of clean, folded clothes. I stepped outside. He turned to me slowly. "It's time you knew," he said. "There are things I've never told you. Things about me, about what I carry, and about what I've lost." I felt my heart beat faster. The man I loved had secrets. And now, it seemed, I would finally learn them. Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. We sat together in silence after he said those words. The fire crackled softly, but the room felt colder than before. Elias held the wooden box in his hands, but he didn't open it this time. His eyes looked tired, as if he had carried a heavy story for a long time. I waited, and finally, he spoke. "I used to live in a place far from here," he began. "A city built near the mountains where people believed in strange things. My family worked for a powerful man, a man who believed he could control life and death. He searched for old secrets, magic from long ago. And one day, he found something. Or maybe he created it. The ring." I watched his face carefully. He was not telling me a fairy tale. He was telling the truth, and that made it even harder to believe. "The ring can give you anything," he said. "Gold, food, power. It listens to wishes. But every time you use it, something is taken from you. Sometimes it's small, like a memory or a feeling. Other times, it's something bigger, something you can't get back." "Then why do you use it?" I asked. He looked at me. "Because I didn't know the truth at first. And by the time I understood, it was too late. I had already used it too many times. I couldn't go back." "What did it take from you?" He paused. I don't remember my mother's face, or the sound of my sister's voice. I know they existed. I loved them, but their images are gone. I felt a deep sadness in my chest. I couldn't imagine forgetting the people I had loved most. Even if they were no longer with me, their memories gave me strength. "I left that place when I learned the truth," he said. "I ran with the ring, hoping no one would follow. I thought if I kept it hidden, the damage would stop." "But someone chased you," I said, remembering his first words. "Yes. The man who created it wants it back. He always finds those who try to run." For a long time, I didn't speak. I looked at the ring. It was just a small, dull circle of metal. It didn't look dangerous, but I believed him. "You could throw it away," I whispered. He shook his head. "It would find its way back, or someone worse would find it. I keep it because I know how to protect it. But that means hiding, always moving, never staying in one place too long. You stayed here." He looked at me, and his voice was softer than ever. "Because I met you." Those words touched something inside me I didn't know was there. I felt fear, but also something like hope. Maybe love can live even in the middle of danger. The next day, I thought about everything he told me. I looked at our life, how warm our home was now, how easy it had become to live. But I also remembered the day I found him, broken and alone in the snow. Nothing came without a cost. The days passed slowly. Elias tried not to use the ring. We worked together like before. We planted more food, fixed the roof again, and even painted the walls inside the house. We laughed. Sometimes I forgot about the ring. But one morning, while I was in the market, I heard two strangers talking near the bread stall. Their clothes were too clean, their voices too smooth. One of them said, "He was seen near the forest. Still has it. We must act soon." I froze. I didn't turn to look. I knew they were talking about Elias. I left the market with my heart beating too fast. When I got home, I told him. He listened without speaking, then slowly went to the door and locked it. "They found me," he said. "It's time to leave." "Leave?" I asked. "We just started to live." He came closer. "They will come, and they won't care who gets hurt." I felt something rise in me. Anger, fear, love. "Then let's not run," I said. "Let's fight, or hide, or destroy the ring." He looked surprised. "Destroy it?" "Why not?" I said. "If it only brings pain, why should it still exist?" He opened the wooden box and stared at the ring. "I've never tried." "Then maybe it's time." That night we went to the place where I had first found him. The same spot near the broken fence. We dug a deep hole and placed the ring inside. Elias added salt, ash, and small pieces of silver. He whispered something in a language I didn't know. Then we burned it. The fire turned blue. The ground shook slightly just for a second. Then silence. The ring was gone. At least, we believed it was. When we walked back, Elias held my hand. He didn't speak, but I could feel something had changed. He was lighter, like he could breathe again. But peace never stays for long. The next morning, the strangers came. They knocked hard. Elias opened the door and stood tall. "It's gone," he said. They pushed past him, searched the house, opened every box, broke the wooden floor under the bed. They found nothing. "You've made a mistake," one of them said. "He will not forgive this." Elias said nothing. The men left, but we knew this wasn't the end. For a week, everything was quiet. Then, one evening, while Elias was outside, I heard something. A sound like singing, but sad, cold, and strange. I looked out the window. A man in a black coat stood at the edge of the forest. He didn't move. He just watched. I told Elias. He looked out, then closed the curtain. "That's him." We packed our things. Only what we could carry. We left the house in the dark. As we walked away, I looked back. I loved that little home, but I loved Elias more. We traveled for days, across rivers, through woods. We slept in barns, under trees, in empty cabins. But I was not afraid. We were together. Then, one night, I had a dream. In the dream, I saw the ring again. It was whole, alive, floating in a pool of black water. I woke up with a scream. Elias held me. "What did you see?" I told him. His face turned pale. "It's not over." We stayed in a small village near the hills for the next few weeks. The people there were kind and didn't ask questions. Elias helped the baker fix his roof, and I worked with a woman who made soap. For a little while, it felt like we could start again. We had no ring, no magic, no fear. But I could still see the worry in Elias's eyes. He smiled for me, but I knew he hadn't stopped looking over his shoulder. One afternoon, I found Elias standing near the river, staring into the water. His face looked far away, like he was trying to remember something he had forgotten long ago. I stood beside him and waited. After a moment, he said quietly, "I think the ring came back." My heart dropped. "How?" He shook his head. "I don't know, but I can feel it. Like it's near. Like it's calling to someone." I didn't understand how a ring could do that, but I didn't question him. I believed him. "Then what do we do?" I asked. "We need to find it," he said. "Before they do." We left the next day, following no map, only the feeling Elias had. He believed the ring was no longer buried but had moved. He said it might have returned to the old kingdom, the place where it was created. The thought made me afraid. But I had made my choice long ago. Wherever he went, I would follow. The journey was hard. The weather changed quickly. Some days were hot, others wet and cold. We walked through forests, across empty fields, past villages where no one spoke to us. I was tired, but Elias kept going. He walked like a man with a heavy heart, but a clear purpose. One night, we stayed in an old church that had no roof. The stars were bright above us, and the wind moved through the trees. Elias looked up and whispered, "This is where I grew up." I was surprised. "Here?" I asked. He nodded. "My home was nearby. It's gone now. Burned after I left." He didn't say more, but I held his hand and stayed close. The next day we reached a small town built at the edge of a deep valley. At the bottom of that valley stood a black tower. It was tall and narrow, like a finger pointing at the sky. Elias stopped when he saw it. "It's there," he said. I looked at the tower and felt cold. Even from far away, it looked wrong, like it didn't belong in this world. "What's inside?" I asked. "Pain," he said, "and power." We waited until nightfall. Then we climbed down into the valley. It took hours to reach the base of the tower. The ground was covered in dead leaves, and the trees had no birds. Everything was silent. At the door of the tower, Elias stopped. "You don't have to come," he said. I stepped forward and took his hand. "Yes, I do." The door opened with a loud sound, and we walked into the dark. Inside, the air was heavy. The walls were made of black stone, and there were no windows. We moved slowly, holding each other's hands tightly. Then, from the shadows, we heard a voice. "You returned." It was the same man I had seen before, the one in the black coat, watching from the forest. But now he was close. His face was pale, with eyes that looked like glass. He didn't look angry. He looked curious. "You destroyed the ring," he said. "Or tried to." Elias stepped in front of me. "Leave her out of this." The man smiled. "She chose to come. That makes her part of the story now." "What do you want?" Elias asked. The man looked at us both. "I want balance. That ring is part of something older than you can understand. It belongs to this place, and it is not finished with you." Suddenly the ground shook. A light appeared at the center of the room. The ring floated above a stone table, turning slowly in the air. It was whole again. I gasped. "How can this be?" "It can never be destroyed," the man said. "Only hidden or used." Elias stepped forward. "What if I give it back?" The man shook his head. "You don't have that choice anymore." Then the ring dropped from the air, and everything went still. Elias turned to me. "If I take it again, I may forget you. I may forget everything." I felt tears rise in my eyes. "Then don't take it." He looked at me with pain in his eyes. "If I don't, he will. And then no one will be safe." The man took a step forward. "It must be claimed." Elias reached for the ring. "No!" I shouted. But it was too late. His fingers touched the metal. There was a flash of light, and I was thrown back. When I opened my eyes, I was outside the tower, alone. I screamed his name, but no one answered. Days passed. I searched the valley, the tower, the town. No sign of Elias. The people didn't remember a man with green eyes. It was like he had never been there. I returned to our old village. The house was still empty. I sat by the fire and tried to remember his face, but it was already growing faint. I wrote everything down in a notebook, hoping it would help me hold on. 1 year passed. Then one evening, a man knocked on my door. He was tall, quiet, with dark hair and a coat I recognized. He looked at me and said, "Is this your home?" My heart jumped. I looked into his eyes. They were not green. They were brown. But there was something familiar in the way he stood. "I think I'm lost," he said. I nodded. "Maybe not. Maybe you just came back." He smiled a little, unsure. I stepped aside and opened the door. "Come in," I said. "You look like someone who could use a warm meal." He sat near the fire. I made tea. We didn't speak much, but when he looked around the room, he seemed to remember something. A small feeling. a light inside, and I knew deep in my heart that he had returned, not as the same man, but as someone who had made a choice to leave the ring, to come home. If you liked my story, please like, comment, and share. More simple and emotional stories are coming soon.